Good morning. Today is August 20th, 2024. You've joined the Kubeflow community call. This call is governed by the the CNCF Code of Conduct, and it is being recorded. So we welcome everyone. And first, just like to ask quickly if anybody would like to introduce themselves. All righty. And if anybody has new topics, just add them into the agenda. If you have any problem with that, just shout it out in between breaks or however. Why don't we start with the release update? Do we have anybody from the release team here? Is Ricardo here or anyone else?
Yes, Josh, I'm here. Um, so just a quick update. We got some working groups saying that there are some important fixes that they would like to prioritize their work. So our plan is to um, bring to the table the possibility to have a patch release for 1.9. So it would be 1.9.1. As for now, all we have is just those working groups reporting those fixes they would like to prioritize. But the timeline to release 1.9.1 still to be defined. Probably will be discussed in the next release team meeting. And we're gonna also ask the other working groups if they are planning to do other important fixes so we can do everyone in a single patch release. For 1.10, I really enjoyed to be part of the 1.9 release team, but now it's time to talk about the 1.10 release team. We have an open issue in the community repo for Kubeflow. It's the 740. I just adding the meeting notes, and we're looking for volunteers for the 1.10 release team. So please, if you think you will be a good fit to and you'd like to volunteer to be part of the 1.10 release team, feel free to comment in the issue and we'll guide you to the next steps to compose the release team for Kubeflow 1.10. All you need to know is that you must be part of the Kubeflow GitHub org member. So if you're not yet, take a look at the community membership, the details on the community notes, and you'll be able to be part of the release team. Also, if you are curious how the release works and what are the release team roles available, take a look at the release handbook. I also posted in the meeting notes and see what's the best role that fits into your role today. And don't forget to send a comment to the 740 issue in the community repo so we can start forming the next release team for 1.10. Guess that's it. If there's any comments and questions about the release updates, feel free to chime in.
I just have one issue that I think is, I mean, obviously Kubeflow Pipelines is going to fix this anyway, but I just want to keep drawing attention to it, that currently you can't run Kubeflow Pipelines v2 with non-root images. And that's a critical issue, which literally makes it a showstopper for almost every company, right? So, like, yeah, it's just an important thing.
Yeah, I think that's the one you're talking about, the emptier file.
Yeah, it's effectively the workaround is just because we can't assume that the certain paths will be writable. We instead just mount an empty dir volume at those paths.
Gotcha. Yeah, good call. We didn't talk about this one. I'll make sure to have this noted in the next release team and work with the pipelines working group to have added to the patch release. Thanks. Thanks, Matthew. Other than that, any other questions or comments about the release updates?
Hey, did we post the video?
So that we should link that actually. So that we need someone who has upload permissions on the Kubeflow channel. Who has that?
I think it's Ember. Maybe Mateo has the details. Mateo, I know there's a PR that we need to add the YouTube link and to fix the release date for 1.9. But other than that, what's missing to publish the video?
Yeah. Thank you, Ricardo. Josh, I put a comment down in the meeting notes today, but I can speak to it now. So on the pull request, I think that we're going to hold it until we publish the videos on the Kubeflow main channel. I've asked earlier Amber today on suggestion from Andre, sorry. So I'm waiting to hear if maybe Amber have access to the video, or otherwise I will follow up with the names that Andre given to me. And so the video is there. As soon as we can publish that one on the main channel, we can update that one on the website too. So this is the update from my end. And I will acknowledge that Matthew filed another PR just to correct the release date in the meantime. So act on that one. Thank you.
Quick question. Who actually has access to the YouTube channel, and can we please convert it to a brand channel as well as like the community channel?
I think this is a question that we can ask Amber, because right now we don't, as far as I can tell, I didn't find the persons who have from sort of like this group of people who have access to that channel and convert it to brand
So
channel.
it takes a bit of care to do it properly. And also YouTube puts like a hold on the channel for like a week or 2 weeks or something, just because it's like a thing that hackers would do. So I'm happy to help walk through anyone, but they need to be an owner of the channel. Like they need to be the top level permission on the channel. So, well, actually that doesn't matter, because if it's just a single YouTube account, they will be by default just the owner, because that's what we're trying to convert. But we just need to confirm, and once we've got that change, then we can add people as various levels like we do for the community one.
Yeah, the only thing that I can do from this end is like I can keep tabs with Amber, and as soon as I understand who have at least some rights to the YouTube channel, I can communicate that to you, Matthew, and the rest of the team.
I'll just reach out to her and ask her if she has that credentials or what her level of. I'll just see if it's a brand account already. I'll just ask.
Yeah, there is already a Slack thread where I've asked that.
Awesome. So what's the expected time interval here? Are we thinking end of the month? When do we think that this will get posted?
I think that as soon as Amber has some time to work on it, if she has the access right, this can be done pretty swiftly. But I can feed you back, Josh, as soon as I have some answer from at least from Amber first, and then
Got it. Okay, fantastic. I got it.
Also, if you want me to do a quick recording of the place that you did a voiceover of, I can do that as well.
I did just a voiceover of the slides, so that basically I was reading through that one. At this point, I would rather sort of like,
That's fine.
if someone highlight for Notebooks 2.0, I would maybe take the chance to make a spotlight video, because for this one video we hold up for so long, so I would prefer to maybe sort of like walk it through the finish gate, if that is okay.
Oh, that's fine.
Let's get it done. All right, let's go on to the main agenda unless there's any other questions about the release update. We do need to think about posting a roadmap on the 1.10 big items. I know we've got a list already. There's a lot of great stuff coming in 1.10. So I think that this is going to be a really good release for anybody that takes as a release manager. I think you're going to get a lot of exposure. All right, let's go on to Kubeflow pipelines, docs, update.
Yes. So this became a bit more critical yesterday when I realized that a lot of people are having running into an issue, which is that the script that was previously there, to one of the things that we're updating in this docs is the script that lets you connect from outside the cluster. It no longer works on the 1.9 release because of a slight change in the way the login flow looks. So that while that change will be reverted in 191, I did update the script to support accepting, because right now there's a glitch which effectively caused OAuth2 proxy to think that you need to approve, kind of similar to how when you log in with Facebook, Google, whatever, it says, do you want to approve this other app to use your data? But actually, obviously that makes no sense because Dex and OAuth2 proxy are both within our app, so that's silly. So it was more of a UI bug. So effectively, when you get to that screen, the script got very confused. So So we're adding, that's one of the things we're updating. Of course, it also massively improves the V2 migration guide. It's still the same content. It's just formatted in a less insane way. There was some contention about the fact that it looked like I was adding content about Vertex AI, but actually all I was doing was making that content less prominent because I was just moving things around. But effectively, I don't feel comfortable removing that because as I said in the thread, I don't think, while personally I'm not going to have an opinion on whether we should have Vertex AI code in the Kubeflow Pipelines SDK, I think that it does exist right now, and therefore it would be silly to remove the docs that reference it, especially on the migration guide, because there's a lot of confusion that could come by not explaining this part was only ever used by Vertex AI, so you shouldn't ever think about it if you're a normal user, things like that. And that's really what the comments were saying, and they were worried about this using the name. Anyway, that's a side discussion. And so,
Right.
yeah,
Matthew, you got me a little confused here.
Okay.
So I got to back up a second and understand. There are two problems here. One is about, and they're interrelated. One of them is about how the login works from outside the cluster with V2s, and the other is a website update.
So they're both, so technically speaking, these are both documentation updates.
Okay.
So there's a one docs PR that's there. You don't need to open it. You can if you want, but you don't have to. The PR updates one section of the Kubeflow Pipelines docs. It doesn't change any of the actual content, well, not significantly. It mostly is around changing some of the example codes to be correct and actually runnable. Kind of naming the pages to be things that are less crazily long, because some of the current page titles are just incredibly long. And fixing the migration guide and some other things. Like that's kind of when I say fixing, I mean rearranging it. It's more about structural changes, this PR. And so the thing that we have to discuss, well, not we have to discuss, and I don't think we should do it straight away, is that Julius wants to also add information on the connecting from outside the cluster page about the new OAuth 2 proxy. They calling it machine-to-machine connection, but I think it's more technically correct as just a trust relationship where you can trust another issuer for tokens and allow outside cluster access. But in any case, we need to describe both on the website. Like, since almost everyone is, because right now everyone using Kubeflow pipelines is using the DEX approach, that needs to be updated like today, if necessary. But like I've had at least 20 issues raised about it, and yeah, Ricardo.
So Matthew, just another thing. I see the descriptions about improving KFP docs, but I see there's a change in the KTIB. There's one change in the KTIB user guide. I think it's good or even reasonable to just say that there's a small change in KTIB as well. Just do not lose track on this change when looking at the history. But overall, it looks good to me. I'll take a look at that. I'll ask Helber. I believe we are able to help with reviewing and if not approving this PR.
So the thing we need to confirm is that my updated version works. I had one person message saying that it didn't work for them, but I think they must have had a broken cluster. So I'll check that. But yeah, so that KTIB change. So there's one thing to be noting about people is that the reason I had to edit something in KTIB, that particular diff might not be necessary right now, but let me explain something, which is because we've added link checking, meaning that PRs cannot be merged if the links are not valid across the whole site. The problem is that if you created a PR that was created before we added that link check, that check won't be applied to your PR. So as a result, you could merge things into the code base that will block every subsequent PR from being able to be merged. If you know what I'm saying. So like, because the definition of the CI/CD jobs is within your pull request branch, if you didn't base your branch on a commit after we've added the link checker, you could still merge it. And so what happened is KTIB did that, and that's why I had to make a change to the links in KTIB to be able to merge mine.
Yeah, I saw that there's a comment saying that you are fixing checking errors. Okay, that that's reasonable.
So all I'm saying is rebase your website PRs. That's all I'm saying. Please do that, so I don't have to do it again.
Okay. About the Vertex AI, I think I understand. We should keep it as for now. Let's not forget that we have 3 backends today. So whenever it's possible, if you can also mention that there is an Argo, Tacton, and Vertex AI as the backends for KFP, it would be fine to me. Anyways, let
But
me
please raise a
let me.
separate PR for that. I think you should raise a separate PR for that because it probably requires more information than just a brief mention. You know what I mean?
Yeah, no, but there's one specific that I believe it's worth mentioning in the RPR, but we can discuss after the meeting. As for now, I'll talk to Helber and we can review together and if needed, propose any changes or LGTM and approve the PR.
Okay,
So
so
if you
we
could also just try that script, yeah.
we've got the issues identified. We've got people who are going to double check them, and that looks all like we've got a path forward for this, correct? So can we move
Yep.
to the next
Yep, yep.
item? Okay. Okay, thanks for bringing this to our attention. And now Francisco.
Howdy, folks. How's everybody doing? Happy Tuesday. I'm Francisco, a maintainer for Feast. Big thanks to Matthew for making some updates to the Feast documentation on the Kubeflow website. I really appreciate that. I wanted to mention, and I've mentioned this several times, I think, in the last few weeks, kind of informally. This is a formal request to, have Feast and myself as a part of the data working group. I know that there is some discussion about having that be discussed amongst the steering committee. So that is an explicit request I am having to get an answer back from the steering committee. Maybe not this week, but maybe in a finite time period. And a kind of my goal would be to have Feast included in the 1.10 release. And I put as reference here in the architecture documentation, Feast's architecture documentation, to outline some of the things that Feast is doing for reference. I spent the last few weeks updating it pretty aggressively so that users can be more familiar with how it works and why. Those things weren't detailed before, but obviously I think there are a lot of open questions about feature stores itself, and so I thought that was useful. There's also a separate PR that I wanted to just get a review on for the Kubeflow training operator that I was just plugging, but I think somebody just actually approved it. But yeah, so the basic question was just about Feast inclusion. Again, it's already an external add-on. The manifest was removed several weeks ago. I'm coming here asking to see if we can get it planned to be incorporated so we can do the work to do so.
Yeah, we discussed some of this in the Kubeflow steering committee, and I can give an update. Does anybody else have a comment on Francisco's update?
I mean, I just want to say to people, so like if you were previously looking at the external add-ons section of the website and you're embarrassed by it, it should be now fine. So you can share it if you know what I mean. There's now 3 projects that are listed there, one of which is not there is so Elira does have some problems, but it's not currently maintained. But it is still usable in a sense, but not with Jupyter Lab 4. The other one is Kserve, obviously. So Kserve, Feast, and Elira. And so if people, yeah, anyway, I just wanted to say that there's another section of the website that describes those things.
So here's, honestly, there was some discussion in the Kubeflow steering committee. There was some concern that we're growing the community with a lot of different software projects that are being added in. I'm a big proponent of adding software projects. There are others that aren't. I think there's good arguments for both sides. But the thing that we have not done from the steering committee, and we need to get a pull request created and a process defined, which is, how do we actually add in new components in a reasonable way? Both how do they become perhaps an add-on, and then how does an add-on become a core? But in the basic thing, I think that there's probably 4 or 5 things that I personally would like to see. I don't know about the other steering committee people, but I think it would help, number of users, contributors, what the roadmap looks like, the integration workflows with other Kubeflow. And then I think that we have to have some form of kind of thought about, as we add in new components, especially ones like Elvira, or I can never say that, but others that, that we have as add-ons, if they need to be turned down, what is the plan if we had to turn it down? So those are like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 things that I think would help when we're making a recommendation to add in a component as perhaps an add-on. I know that Feast has had a good long life so far, and probably has a lot of users and contributors from time to time. I don't know. I assume, Francisco, you have a published roadmap, and probably can talk to the workflow integrations with other components with Kubeflow. If there aren't there already, there's probably some that probably aren't too far away. So I mean, I think you're, in my opinion, at least from my checklist, again, 1 person out of 5 on the steering committee. That seems to, Feast probably covers a lot of those checks, right? So I'm positive on this, but I'm 1 out of 5. There might be other people that have difference of opinion. They may not want to speak in public about it just yet, but I will continue to push this forward for you and the Trusty AI folks and other folks that are trying to get an answer from the steering committee. But I really think probably we need some form of process defined. And, you can think about that as, how do I get to add-on status, which is, maybe there's an incubator or a probationary status. And then there's, how do I get to be a core component? Because I think there should be graduation to core, and there might even be graduation out of core. I don't know what that would be, but maybe there's pieces that either start to die off or whatever. We have to think about cradle to grave for everything as we go through this. So does that make sense? I know I spoke a lot.
No, that makes sense. I think, like, I understand the broad assessment of, like, well, here's a process for, how something like Trust AI is a good example, or some other project might be included as an add-on, and then deprecating it if that's, a requirement like Elvira. I think Feast is a unique case, I think, because it was previously included in the manifests, and then it was removed, though the community was still active. And so that's the piece where overall the broad theme makes sense. I think tactically, what I'm just looking for as an answer is like, hey, what can we do here? Feast, people are deploying it pretty extensively on their own. But again, incorporating into Kubeflow would be the goal.
So when you talk about incorporating the Kubeflow, then that becomes the manifest, the isolation, the authentication authorization, and all that comes with some form of testing and documentation that comes with every release.
Right.
So I guess, 1 question might come up to me is, how do we, and again, I'm not trying to make a bunch of hoops. I want to make it as comfortable as possible for everybody. And I want to make it fair and kind of laid out. But how would the testing, for example, work with Feast? And what type of test scenario? And you don't have to answer right now, but you get the point, right? Is like, So are we just testing installation? Or are we also testing functionality? And who's supposed to do that? Do all of the distributions need to go in and test and make sure that Feast is working in all the distributions?
Yeah, my 2 cents would be that Feast has pretty strong testing that is usually quite good. I mean, again, we have bugs, of course, but it's usually pretty resilient. It has integration and unit tests. I think confirming the build is definitely something that we would want and incorporate into the manifest itself. Again, we have tests for that in the repo itself, but that's work we could definitely incorporate. From the security and perspective, there's, again, fee-specific frameworks that we're actually adding that is kind of following what I believe is the same patterns as some of the projects do today. But I need to kind of go back and confirm that. But you know, a lot of those things are controllable or configurable by the end users, especially doing data.
And I don't even, it doesn't even matter if they don't match up perfectly right at the beginning. It's just like, hey, recognizing it, documenting it, or at least giving people an awareness.
And we do have all of that. We have all of that documented.
Yeah. Okay.
So, actually, like if I'm just being kind of honest, our docs are pretty good.
Yeah. I suspect that so anyway, I just rattled off like 10 things. I think that from the steering committee, been negligent, probably me, in designing this process, proposing it, perhaps, get off my, duff this week. Maybe we can write up a proposal on this and then see if we can, get some comments on it so we can use maybe Feast or Trusty or several of them as kind of test
Would it be
cases.
helpful if I help draft a proposal as well, and you could just I could create a PR with
Want to
it.
work together with? I'm glad to work together with you. I'd like to get this over the edge, and I think you've been patient and fair, and we want to give you guys a path forward. Right.
Awesome. Yeah, I took notes of what you said. I'll draft some stuff and put it together, and you know, we can kind of collaborate from there. Should I just
All
reach?
right, here comes Andre. Now here comes the real boss. What's up, Andre?
No worries, Josh. You don't need to talk about it. Yeah, I mean, that's right, Francisco. Thank you. So just a couple of questions, right? So when you say incorporate fees within Kubeflow, are you talking about donation fees to the Kubeflow ecosystem?
No, that's a broader conversation. I mean, include it in the manifest like it previously was. Sorry.
Because the thing is, like, I'm more than happy to review your, like your proposal, but I think we need to be very, cautious what we call about what is Kubeflow, right? Because like many distributions ask about conformance, right? And I think like we need to establish a conformance program relatively soon. And when actually distributions can call themselves Kubeflow conformant, this actually allows us to define a set of tests they need to, pass, and set of components they need to support. I mean, right now we don't have clear structure. What is external add-on? What is the core, right? But I would love to like understand what is your perspective on Feast within Kubeflow moving forward.
Yeah, so like I'll avoid being diplomatic to favor being candid. I think my experience in launching production machine learning across a bunch of different companies, for better or worse, is that it turns out the feature store is really critical to that. I previously bought Tecton, and then I ended up using Feast just because we were doing Spark on Kubernetes, and then that knocked out Tecton. I joined Red Hat in part because I was passionate about open source. I think for any useful machine learning platform that's serving enterprise needs, whether it be serving two enterprises or serving as an enterprise, they need some good patterns on how to process, send, and work with data for ML. And I think Feast serves that purpose really well. I think any platform without it is honestly, candidly, not as useful as one with it. In fact, in many cases, I would say that a platform without the ability to handle the data in a moderately structured way is not going to be as useful to me as just building something itself. So my point is that I think Feast adds a lot of value comprehensively to an AI ML platform and to the community to give them good patterns on how they can scale their production systems. That is my like North Star view. Now, how the details of how that gets adopted into the Feast manifest and what processes we have to go through to make that happen, I think I'm very flexible about. But again, anchoring on what I think is a useful tool to the community is really where I am, if that makes sense.
Yeah, I mean, that makes sense. But I mean, the only question is like we have a limited amount of people, right? We have a limited amount of, folks who can be in the working group leads. So the thing is like, I think I mentioned this before, but historically working groups was designed, right, to just maintain the components which sitting under the Kubeflow umbrella, right? There are so many projects across the, like landscape, other things in industry which also do cloud native things, right? But we just don't have capacity enough people to actually support all those components, right? Because landscape is like, especially right now, it's emerging very fast, right? The question is like where we should invest our resources is probably we as a community should answer, right?
Yeah.
Those conversations, right?
So I mean, specifically around Feast is, I think, something that should be more than most considered for inclusion in Kubeflow itself, but that's a separate discussion. Around the manifests, I think I am a little bit concerned about including external projects in the manifests, not just because of potential licensing changes which have happened. Like, for example, we do need to remove some of the manifests because they're no longer licensed as open source projects, and things like that. But also just like, is it really in the best interest of users to be installing it in that way, right? Like, they're not part of Kubeflow. They will release at separate times to Kubeflow. It might make more sense to encourage users to give, as I said, like as we do on the external docs website, link people to the installation guide for that project and help people do it. And so that there's no dependence on us releasing a new version of Kubeflow for that external add-on to be updated, for example. And that's just my only kind of thought there. Like, it's the Kubeflow manifest. It's a bit weird that it includes other projects. That's what I'm saying.
Yeah, I mean, I have the similar concern with Matthew. Like, I think we should, I mean, my personal perspective, we should reconsider how we structure those manifests and, like be more focusing on the projects which we can maintain. Because again, as I said, like landscape is huge and we cannot, tell distributions you have to support all of these projects to build the AML platform, right? Because we're kind of like making a very opinionated,
Yeah.
way.
Like, I'm a little bit concerned about the direction of the manifests as well. Like, they also are like there are two, like some of the people who are working on the manifest, and I'm thankful for their work. I think what they should do is make a Kubeflow distribution with their opinions on how to do it if they want to distribute those external add-ons that they make. You know what I mean? Like, it's just a bit weird that they're doing it under the Kubeflow brand. And a bit unfair to the vendors and other people who are also doing things under Kubeflow. It'd be like if Kubernetes had a distribution of Kubernetes,
Do you mean like, Matthew, do you mean like having a Helm chart for Kubeflow?
I mean, I don't mind what you do as your vendor, right? But like, but I'm saying is, the manifests should be aimed at very advanced users who want to either roll their own distribution or vendors to make distributions of Kubeflow. And the intent, and what that would mean is, what it does right now is provide the aggregated versioned manifests of each Kubeflow component along with some core stuff to get that working on a cluster as a platform. And maybe there's multiple options for some of those things, and that's fine, like 2 types of auth or whatever. But the kind of the parts which are pushing more towards opinionated things need to be removed, and that includes anything that's not actually part of Kubeflow, right? Because that's an opinion at that point, right? That's not like, and no one can disagree that notebooks should be part of it because it's part of Kubeflow. But whereas Feast might or might not be, depending on the user's case, for example. Which I'm not saying, like, all I'm saying is, rather than asking for Feast to be re-added, I think we should instead ask for everything else to be removed. That's kind of more what I was saying.
Well, then are you going to
And
remove Kserve?
so Kserve, it remains the one complicated historical problem,
Right.
but
But
that can be solved through other discussions, I think.
yeah, I mean, I think Feast and Kserve, whatever.
So
Uh,
Feast and Kserve again might be separate, but there are other projects in I'm not like Feast and Kserve, while they may be the topic of this particular discussion, um, are not the ones that I'm concerned about.
I think these are very good positions, and I think arguments can be made both ways. We have to make a decision here. It's
Yeah.
going to influence the community going forward. And
I would
we have to figure out a way to get this decision made. Go ahead, Francisco.
Yeah, so I would just love to double click a little bit into, I hate that phrase. Sorry. I would love to dig into a little bit what you said, Andre, where I think I heard a couple concerns, and they're valid. I want to say that, like, supporting more projects, a lot of maintenance burden. But there's also like a data working group thing where it sounds like if I'm offering to support on a continuous basis for fee specifically and maintain it, since I'm a maintainer there, then I don't think there's a resourcing problem necessarily. Maybe there's still some. There's an argument to be made that there's some incremental, but it's not maybe entirely. So I just would love to understand.
Yeah, so the thing is like we as a community should establish the clear guidelines for working group. I think we haven't done this for a while, but like, providing the regular updates, doing like the regular checkups, releases and other things, right? To make sure all the projects been stable. Otherwise, we're going to just archive them, right? If they stay unmaintained for several, months or quarters, right? Because for example, like right now, Ray is part of, manifest external add-ons, right? It's part of manifest installation. Ray is like strongly related to data, right? Because many people use this for data preparation, right? Should we as a community spend our engineering resources to be part of Ray community, or it should be completely separate, right? So my only question, what is the reason for working groups, and where should they spend their resources, right? Should they be involved? Because for example, we collect right now, folks from Spark Operator and Model Registry don't really collaborate. That makes sense, right? Because they're two separate projects, right? But what if people want to be part of data working group and, do different things in all those different projects, right? So all these questions, yeah, we need to probably discuss them. Maybe not right now, but I think my only question, what is the scope of working groups, right?
This is a question outside of my
Yeah.
my house. Okay, sorry.
I mean, because right now, looking at the government structure for the Kubeflow community, working groups just maintain the Kubeflow components, right?
I
Not
see.
like, external add-ons or any other components which is not part of the core, right?
Oh, so you're saying, I see. So it would be a different conversation to you if I was advocating for fees to be included in Kubeflow, because then it would be, hey, this is a package.
Otherwise, we need to change the government structure, right?
Yeah, I see. I'm
So,
open to, like, so I can be transparent. I think long term, I think it makes sense because I'm probably not going to maintain Cube Feast for forever. I'm maintaining it now for the last 9 months pretty aggressively. I don't plan to stop doing that in the near or medium term, but maybe I get hit by a bus or something. And I would like it to kind of live on beyond me. I know there's a lot of increasing users. I do think that it would make sense to go Kubeflow. I haven't created any sort of documentation to advocate for like a more formal inclusion of Feast into Kubeflow. Would a document spelling that out be like the right process to do that, or what would that look like? Is that something that's been formalized before, or is it just arbitrarily kind of chosen?
yeah, as Josh mentioned, I don't think we have a clear process right now, right? I mean, the process has been for Spark Operator, right? Like we started an issue, we created the doc, we collected the, the user stories, the maintainers and other things, right? I think maybe first of all, Francisco, like maybe you can share the doc that you started with us, and maybe we can collaborate like what we can do from the short term to the long term, right? And what is your perspective, since you kind of like you're the main maintainer of this project? What is your like long-term vision for Feast, right? And how we as a community can help, right?
Yeah.
You
So
to
I'd like to, because we got some other topics, I'd like to get this to a place where we've got to go forward. I think we have kind of mushed it around, but perhaps if we get to that point, there needs to be a discussion dedicated to Feast. And, you know, so we can really dig into all the details when we get those proposals ready to go. So we're not rushed and we can just get it done, right? One way or another. So Francisco can decide which way to take his project. I'm kind of more leaning to what the last part of the discussion just went towards, but that's just me. You know, if you're going to give it to Kubeflow, then it makes it a lot easier to integrate everything. But
Yeah,
okay.
I mean, that has to be a
Do we have a
decision for
path
your
forward
community.
on
That
that,
has
or
to-
do we need more? Can we close that out, or do we need more?
So my only request is that if you want to join Kubeflow, make a formal request to do it as a community, preferably with more than just you as there. You'd be subject to the same requirements as every other working group. You'd be under the Kubeflow governance. You'd be under the CNCF if you're not already. You'd be you'd have to have more than one company maintaining it, things like that, right? But
Yeah, I mean, some of that stuff's a little flexible, but sure. Okay, we already talked about the video for 1.9, right? So we're good with that one?
Correct, Josh. About the model registry, pardon, about the model registry bi-weekly update. So very shorter meeting due to the summertime. I think that we have to keep tabs on what we're planning to do for the 110, and I think the main highlights is going to be for the UI. One item that also sort of like emerged as I participated as well in the release team meetings is that I'm looking into the Kubeflow. We are looking into the Kubeflow manifest CVE reports. So that is helpful to know that some security scanning is showing the CVE. My understanding, however, is that currently that report is showing aggregated numbers. I think that there may be a couple of things that as we will look forward into it, could be helpful to consider. One is that rather than just having the aggregated number, also display for say a short amount of time what are those CVEs. Because for instance, the Kubeflow 1.9 release blog, there is a nice table that I think is good for overview. But then if somebody wants to look and see what those numbers are currently today, as far as I understand, there is no way to running it locally. And I think it's like if there is any way that we can sort of like do it not only for model registry, but in general for in the scope of, hey, yes, these are some criticals or high CVEs that needs to be identified. There is that. So that one, and second is like say, as I was digging through that yesterday evening, I think that maybe as well there might be some double counting potentially, because for instance, one of the images is the Google MLMD and the same MySQL project. So if a CV is affecting an image which is shared across working groups, maybe that table could be double counting on things. And that is from me, the update is that I wanted to see. The last two bullet point, I didn't add them, so maybe I don't know if it's Ramesh or Matthew or whoever added the last 2 points.
Yeah, the last 2 points are me. So let me just ask one question on the model registry, right? What version are we on the model registry now? Is it 0.2?
0.24 alpha as a request.
4 alpha. And as we look at the model registry going forward, I know you had the meeting yesterday. What's the kind of the look at, we go to 1.10. Are there any 1, 2, 3 things that are coming in the next few releases of the model registry that might map into 1.10 that would be, you know, that we need to highlight to end users, like things that you're want people to know are on the roadmap, and we need end user to kind of get engaged to help with in terms of, hey, are we going in the right direction?
Definitely the UI. And I think I would focus the attention there because this is one of the things that I think Eder and the team is doing a great job in ramping up the efforts. So as we also discussed in the meetings, they are going to participate in the bi-weekly meetings so that they showcase to the community the progress that they're making with the UI. So any feedbacks that we can get early on is going to be very beneficial for the working group. Any feedback that end users, adopters of model registry have about the UI is going to be very beneficial. Plus, we are continuing the integration with other components. So I think that is also that is very helpful, like as we have from the tutorials already on the Kubeflow website, and I'm planning to expand with further integration with other components still documenting on the Kubeflow website. That is also what I've noticed and gaining feedback because we had some people like also Andre mentioning interesting use case of integration with Katib or training operator for that matter. So I think that is also a great point of feedback that we can solicit. But to me, the main highlight that we'll put first and foremost in front of everybody is that the UI is coming, and this should be the main highlight for the Kubeflow model registry, sort of like next big things to release. So there is that. I saw that maybe Ramesh had some raised hand. So I don't know if you wanted.
Yeah, I was gonna also say the integration portions material is that's the one another big item we are really looking to work with the other teams in how we can be integrate with the other components and bring more functionality to it. So UI integration with other components. The third one, kind of a little bit of a early in stages, but probably we can put a plugin. Is we are looking for storage of the models itself. How we can bring in that portion of it. It's still a little bit of a early work, but we don't know whether we can get it done for 1.10. But if something happens, that's another one we are looking to bring it in. That should open up a lot of use cases too.
When you say storage, do you mean like just using an image registry, like the OCI container approach?
Yes, Matthew. Yeah.
Cool. By the way, if anyone didn't notice, Kubernetes 131 now supports mounting volumes that are container images. And the purpose of that was explicitly to support models as container images as models, if you know what I mean. So you can just, because the efficiency there is that each node will only pull it once. So if you have a 100 gigabyte model, you don't want to pull that 100 gigabyte model 100 times. If you've got 10 containers on the same server, that's silly. You know what I mean? So, yeah.
Yeah, we are already looking into that. I mean, but obviously, the support for 131 is a little further away, right? It's also in I believe it's in a incubation or tech preview.
Yeah, so that's sorry, that's an alpha feature. Yes, you're right. Yeah.
By the time it comes to a GA, it could be very further away. So we are also seeing how we could get in a model car kind of a thing that Kser currently supports. How we can use that. It's too little early. We got a lot more work to do. Matthew has been working really hard towards it. So it's a little too early for us to commit to it for 1.10. But if it doesn't get there, it's soon after we will get. That will open up, in my opinion, few more collaborations that we can, it's opening interesting use cases with that offering, in my opinion.
So this is really great. The model registry working group has really executed as, kind of almost anything you build, you probably need 3 releases to really get it to a place. We're getting to that point where, in 1.10, the model registry looks like it's maturing. I assume the release after that, it'll be really, really good to go. So we do need user feedback. I mean, this is critical now that users start to comment on PRs, and we get more exposure on this. So I look forward to seeing the updates on the UI and giving it more eyes to look at that. So thank you guys for putting that together. All of that looks, very positive. Anything else on the model registry? GSOC, anything there? No.
GSOC, I'm only advocating we are coming very close. At least one meeting, if we can commandeer to have the students come in and give the presentations, maybe 10 minutes each, 5 minutes each, doesn't matter. On one of the community meetings, I think it would be a good way to showcase their work, their contributions to the community so far. It's both a recognition for them, as well as for people who are in the different teams, what kind of a new features they have added. It's a summarization, so it would be really neat to have that. So I think in next month, I think maybe not the next one or the following one or something. Whenever your final evaluation is, at least a week before that, if we can have that and have them come in and talk about their contributions for 5 minutes in this meeting.
All right, let's look at the calendar and pick a date. Has anybody got a calendar up that we can look at? What's it look like? So it would be, what are we on, the 20th? So go the 27th, then we're like early September. Are you talking the second week in September or the first week in September?
Yeah, Andre, Matthew, what you guys think? I think you are the mentors.
When do we have to, like, so the evaluation, sorry, we have to submit final evaluations at some point. Does this happen before that or after that?
I would be neat if we do it before, so that but if it is going to cause you guys a little bit of a more time crunch, we can do it right after. So I'm seeing, let me see what's my timelines are. Program, oops, not that, projects. I think final evaluation is September 30th.
September 30th is the final. Okay.
Mm-hmm.
Well, it doesn't have to be perfect on time. And if people wanted to show up and do theirs, they don't have to do them all at the same time. And, look, we don't want to make them have to do a bunch of extra work, but presenting to your peers is important, and being able to get that video and get some exposure and us be able to highlight the success. I love all that. So let's see if we can try to get a date set up for a few of these and add more as we go. It's kind of my opinion.
Just a one correction. September 30th is the last one. It starts, some folks have September 2nd, some folks have September 16th, some folks have September 23rd. The last one is on September 30th. So yeah, mentors, please please watch out for those dates and fill out the final evaluations, because as an organization, we will be judged on that. So they will look at these things next year when we ask for the more GSOC students. So we wanna be a good citizens and in good standing with this program.
All right. So I got two other items, if that's okay. To graduate, I think to graduate as a CNCF project, we have to very much be aware of the CVE list. I think this is one of the things in there, and we have a great list that we came up with and we published it in the blog, but there was a bunch of critical and high issues. We got to have a plan here, right? For 110 or something to start to knock some of those things out. So that's just a heads up to folks that, Can we get a plan? Because, you know, if we look at our strategy of trying to graduate from the CNCF in 2 releases, we got to do a chunk of the work in this 110, right? So let's see what we can get done. And then the last thing is, we spoke to the CNCF. They asked about promoting Kubeflow, and one of the things that came up was like, can you come up with an end user use case? And so I found a user that potentially wants to participate in that. If there are other users, great. But I think that we should take the CNCF up on finding users that will go through this interview process and present or whatever is required, even if it's just written, not that they have to go and present it in public, but if they want to present it in public, I'm sure we can find them opportunities for that too. But anyway, it's kind of a call for end user use cases, because we're going to start to leverage the CNCF if we can. And we're at 11 o'clock my time, which means we're 1 hour finished on time. Looking forward to getting the new Kubeflow community meeting set up, you know, the new agenda, the new structure, and 110. So as folks, you know, I know a lot of times people don't want to do it in public, but let's try to get kind of revved up for 110 and with, you know, the new folks engaged, and let's try to keep this these meetings going and valuable. Any last comments? Anybody want to say anything before we go?
Not anything to Brian's, but Josh, just what's the best way to contact you at Doc to collaborate on? Is that just via GitHub or
To contact me?
to collaborate on that doc, or just to?
Yeah. I mean, if you want to do it GitHub, or even if you want to do a Google Doc, just to start off with the Google Doc, let's just write down what our thoughts are first.
Yeah, I'll do it in a Google Doc and comment on the notes here with a link to it.
And then we can just cut and paste that into, you know what I mean? Because I think we might have some edits back and forth if we're collaborating.
Of course. Okay.
If that's okay. And if you don't have my email, it's just Josh Bottom, my name, BOTTUM @gmail.
Okay. Great. Thank you.
Okay. Anything else from anybody else? Anything for next week that needs to be on the agenda? Okay. Anybody that, I'm going to turn off the recording. Anybody that wants to say anything off recording or introduce or anything like that, you know, probably.